speech event is one of the 10 events in academic decathlon, and as part of the speech event, there are actually two sort of sub-events. There is a prepared speech and an impromptu speech, and each of the students must deliver these speeches to a panel of 2 to 3 judges, and there is also a speech timer, yourself, present in the room as well to provide timing responsibilities. The rules of the speech event are as follows. The prepared speech must be the original work of the student. It must be something that they wrote and created themselves. It is something that they've developed just for this competition year, so they will not be repeating a speech from a previous competition year. It must be delivered from a standing position, so the students will come into the room, they will deliver their speech from a standing position without a lectern, and they won't be seated or anything else like that. The speech itself, and this is the really important rule for you as timers, must be between 3.5 and 4 minutes long. And that 4 minutes is a very hard time limit. There is no courtesy time for finishing a sentence. And we'll get into that as we get a little bit further into the actual timing of the event, and you'll understand that a little bit more. The impromptu speech, which is the second speech that is delivered during a speech session, is also, again, given from a standing position without a lectern. And the major difference here from a timing perspective is that the impromptu speech has to be between 1.5 and 2 minutes long. So it is a shorter speech. But like the prepared speech, that 2 minutes is a hard time limit, and there is no courtesy time at all. As soon as that time limit is up, if a student happens to still be speaking, they must absolutely stop speaking as soon as that 2 minutes is up. And that is something that you will be signaling to them with timing cards, and we will go over that in more detail as we move forward through the training. Also, in between the prepared speech and the impromptu speech is the impromptu speech preparation period. This is a period of time, 1 minute long, where the student is given a list of topics to choose from, and they have 1 minute to read the topics and to prepare what they're going to say during that impromptu speech. And that is something that you will be timing as well as a speech timer. There are a number of responsibilities that you have as a speech timer, and all of them are very critical. Most of the appeals and questions that arise during the competition from the students and from the coaches are as a result of errors or mistakes or things that happen with respect to timing. So your job is very crucial. It's very, very critical that you treat every student very consistently, very fairly, very objectively. It's very easy to maintain a very consistent process with respect to timing because it's a completely objective responsibility that you have. There will be judges who will be in the room who will be providing the actual judging, and they will be scoring the students against a rubric, and they have a very subjective responsibility in many ways. But your job is very objective, and we want to make sure that you stay as impartial and, most importantly, as consistent as possible. One of your responsibilities is to make sure that your setup in the room is in an appropriate place. Your judges will help with the room setup, but you need to make sure that the seat that you have in the room, it will typically be a desk or a table and chair of some sort, that you are seated in a location where you will be clearly seen by the student. This is very critical because you need to make sure that when you are holding up timing cards, the student is able to clearly see as soon as you hold up a timing card so that they know where they are in their speech. The next responsibility that you have is for every student who comes into the room, you're responsible for timing the 3 critical portions of each speech timing session. The first is that prepared speech that we just discussed, which has to be between 3.5 and 4 minutes long. The second thing that you're timing is that impromptu speech preparation period. This is a 1 minute long period. And then finally, the last thing that you are timing per student is the impromptu speech itself, and that must be between 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long. When a student comes into the room, one of the first things that will be done after the student does some brief introductions with the judges is that the head judge will turn to you and will ask you to read the timing instructions to the student before the prepared speech. And you'll see those timing instructions displayed on the slide right in front of you now. You need to read these instructions verbatim, and I'm going to read them to you right now just so you're sure about exactly what it is that you need to say. Those instructions are as follows. Remember, a prepared speech is in time if you speak between 3.5 and 4 minutes. After you have spoken for 3 minutes, I will hold up the 1 minute card, meaning that you have 1 minute left to speak. After you have spoken for 3.5 minutes, I will hold up the 30-second card, meaning that you have spoken for 3.5 minutes and still have 30 seconds left if you need them. After you have spoken 4 minutes, I will hold up the 0 card, meaning time is up. I will not say stop, but you have no grace period and will be penalized if you continue. So you must read those timing instructions to each student when indicated by the head judge. And if you are requested by the student, the student will be given this option by the head judge, there will be a version of these timing instructions that you will read, that you may read to the student before the impromptu speech as well. Most students won't ask you to read the instructions again, but if they do ask, then that is something that you will read. And there is a separate set of those timing instructions that refer to the time limit for the impromptu speech itself. And all of this is also provided in your timing packet with your paperwork. You have these instructions written down so you can read from them yourself once you're in the timing room. And then your final responsibility is obviously to record the time itself on the timer's log, but then also inform the judges of any penalties that may have occurred during the speech session. Let's just talk in a little bit more detail about timing penalties specifically. As soon as the student leaves the room, you will be responsible to tell the judges in the room whether there were any timing penalties for that particular student. There are 4 choices. First is that they would have a penalty on their prepared speech. The second choice is that they would have a penalty on their impromptu speech. The third is that they would have a penalty on both speeches. And then the fourth choice is that they would have no penalty at all on either speech. You need to tell the judges one of these 4 choices, and all of the judges, the 3 judges in your room, will be marking the exact same penalty marking on their score sheet. And you are responsible for providing them this information based on what you have recorded in your timer's log. A penalty is received if a student is either over or under on either the prepared speech or the impromptu speech time. Now we're going to look at a sample speech session. We've put together this video of what an actual speech session looks like so that you can see what we've learned so far in action. Hi, John.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
And,
Hi, John.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
So your prepared speech will be first. The timer is going to read the timing instructions to you.
Okay, great.
A prepared speech is in time if you speak between 3.5 and 4 minutes. After you've spoken for 3 minutes, I will hold up the 1-minute card, meaning you have 1 minute left to speak. After you've spoken for 3.5 minutes, I will hold up the 30-second card, meaning you have spoken for 3.5 minutes and still have 30 seconds left if you need them. After you have spoken for 4 minutes, I will hold up the 0 card, meaning time is up. I will not say stop, but you have no grace period and will be penalized if you continue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead and begin whenever you're ready.
It's not easy being green. Or at least, that's what Kermit the Frog said on his Muppet Show. Now, you and I may not be able to identify with Kermit's complaint, but aside from having a nice green lawn or a wallet filled with green, most people tend to avoid this mossy, moldy color. And with everything from no matter how you look at it, a green life is a tough life. It's just not easy being green.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your impromptu speech will be next, and the timing works the same way, except it's 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long. So would you like to have the timing instructions read to you again?
No, that's okay.
Okay. So you will have a minute to prepare.
Thank you.
Time is up.
Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. St. Catherine of Siena once said that nothing great is ever achieved without much enduring. And as I look back and describe what can only be labeled as enduring academic decathlon, I can't help but agree with this statement because you were right.
Cool, thank you very much. Good
Thank
luck
you.
in the rest of the competition.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Were there any penalties?
Yes, there was one on the prepared, but none on the impromptu.
Thank you very much for your service as judges. You're going to have a fun time today, and I really appreciate your support and your time.